It was a normal day in New York City, or at least it started that way. People bustled through crowded streets, dodging yellow taxis and street vendors selling hot dogs. Tourists snapped photos of the towering skyscrapers while office workers sipped their morning coffee, hurrying to catch the subway. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting warm light on the city below. Everything seemed ordinary until the sky began to change. At first, no one noticed. A shimmer appeared high above Manhattan, faint and fleeting, like heat waves rising off pavement on a summer afternoon. Then came the whispers. Pedestrians paused mid-step, craning their necks upward. Drivers slowed down, rolling down their windows to get a better look. Something wasn't right. The clouds, those familiar white puffs drifting lazily across the blue expanse, started shifting unnaturally. They weren't moving with the wind. They were being pushed apart, as if an invisible hand had grabbed them and pulled them wide open. Within moments, panic rippled through the crowd. Phones buzzed furiously as millions of people opened their cameras to capture what was happening. Social media exploded with videos and blurry images of the phenomenon. Some claimed it was a government experiment gone wrong. Others insisted it was proof of alien life finally revealing itself. Conspiracy theories spread faster than wildfire. But none of those explanations prepared anyone for what happened next. Through the gap in the sky emerged something unimaginable. Massive shapes loomed into view, so large they seemed to blot out the horizon. At first glance, they looked like mountains floating in space. But these weren't natural formations. Their surfaces gleamed with polished metal, reflecting sunlight in dazzling bursts. Towering spires jutted out from their hulls, bristling with weapons and sensors. Lights blinked rhythmically along their edges, pulsing like mechanical hearts. These weren't just ships, they were fortresses, each one larger than any building on Earth. The largest vessel hung directly over New York City, its shadow stretching across Central Park and beyond. On its side was a symbol that sent chills down the spines of those who recognized it, a golden eagle gripping a shield surrounded by stars. It was the emblem of Project Erebus, a top-secret military initiative rumored to be decades away from completion. No one outside classified circles even knew such technology existed, let alone that it could appear without warning, hovering ominously above humanity's most iconic skyline. As the initial shock wore off, fear set in. Crowds gathered in Times Square, staring up at the monstrous structure above them. Parents clutched their children tightly, shielding them not just from danger but from the sheer impossibility of what they were witnessing. "What is that thing?" someone shouted, their voice trembling. Another person screamed, pointing at smaller objects detaching from the main ship and descending toward the ground. Were they bombs? Weapons? Or something worse? But then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the objects unfolded into sleek, silver drones. They hovered, silently, scanning the area with glowing red lenses. One by one, they projected holographic messages onto nearby buildings. The words were simple yet chilling. "Do not panic. Humanity is safe." Below the message was a countdown timer ticking down from 10 minutes. No explanation followed, leaving everyone to wonder what would happen when the clock reached 0. While chaos unfolded on the streets, aboard the lead Star Destroyer, dubbed Erebus, Captain Elena Ruiz stood at the helm, watching the events unfold on dozens of monitors lining the bridge. She was a striking figure, tall and commanding, with sharp features softened only slightly by the faint lines etched around her eyes. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her uniform bore insignias marking years of service to a cause few understood until now. Ruiz's hands rested firmly on the railing as she surveyed the screens. Before her, each displayed live footage from Earth, terrified faces looking up, cars abandoned in the middle of highways, entire cities grinding to a halt. Despite the gravity of the situation, her expression remained calm. Years of training had taught her to suppress emotion during moments like this. Still, she couldn't ignore the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. This moment, the unveiling of humanity's greatest secret, had been inevitable, but nothing could have fully prepared her for the reality of it. Behind her, the crew worked tirelessly, relaying information and ensuring every system functioned perfectly. Lieutenant Marcus Kane, her second-in-command, approached cautiously. "Captain," he said, his tone respectful but urgent, "we're receiving reports of widespread panic. Should we issue another statement?" Ruiz shook her head. "Not yet," she replied firmly. "Let them process what they've seen. We'll speak when the time is right." Kane hesitated, glancing at the countdown timer displayed prominently on the central screen. "And if they don't react well?" he asked quietly. "They will," Ruiz said, turning to face him. Her gaze was unwavering. "They have to. This isn't just about showing our strength. It's about proving we're ready to protect ourselves, ready to stand alongside or against anyone who threatens us." Her words hung heavy in the air, echoing the unspoken truth. Humanity had crossed a threshold. For centuries, Earth had been vulnerable, relying on luck and diplomacy to avoid destruction at the hands of more advanced civilizations. Now everything had changed. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would see this as a declaration of peace or war. Back on Earth, reactions varied wildly. In Tokyo, a young girl named Aiko stared up at the sky, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. Her grandmother knelt beside her, whispering prayers to ancestors she barely remembered. Across the globe, in Paris, a street performer strummed his guitar furiously, turning fear into art. Notes poured out of the instrument, raw and chaotic, mirroring the emotions swirling around him. Meanwhile, conspiracy theorist Jack Harper found himself thrust into the spotlight. Known for his wild predictions about alien invasions and hidden governments, Harper had spent years shouting warnings that no one took seriously. Now, standing outside Times Square with a megaphone in hand, he bellowed to anyone who would listen. "This is it," he cried, his voice hoarse but triumphant. "This is the moment I've been talking about. Earth isn't defenseless anymore." Cameras flashed as reporters jostled for position, eager to capture his reaction. Some laughed at his theatrics, dismissing him as a lunatic. Others listened intently, wondering if maybe, just maybe, he'd been right all along. As the countdown timer ticked closer to zero, anticipation gripped the planet. What would happen next? Would the mysterious ships descend further? Would they unleash unimaginable power, or offer salvation? No one knew for sure. All they could do was wait, staring up at the sky, holding their breath, and hoping against hope that whatever came next wouldn't spell the end of everything they held dear. And so, as the final seconds slipped away, humanity stood united, not by choice but by circumstance. United under a sky that had parted to reveal wonders and dangers beyond comprehension. As the countdown timer reached zero, the tension on Earth was palpable. Billions of eyes remained glued to the sky, waiting for some sign, a signal, a message, or perhaps even an attack. But instead of destruction, something unexpected happened. The massive star destroyers hovering above Earth began broadcasting a new holographic transmission. This time, the message wasn't cryptic or vague. It was crystal clear, and it sent shockwaves through every corner of the planet. The projection showed a woman standing in front of what appeared to be a command center. She wore a sleek uniform adorned with medals and insignias, her posture radiating authority. Behind her, rows of officers worked diligently at glowing consoles, their movements precise and coordinated. The woman introduced herself as Captain Elena Ruiz of the Erebus, humanity's flagship. Her voice carried both warmth and steel, addressing not just the people of Earth but the entire galaxy. "Citizens of Earth," she began, her tone measured yet firm. "What you see above you is not an invasion. These ships belong to us, to humanity. For years we have prepared for this day, knowing that our survival depended on taking control of our destiny. Today, we declare ourselves no longer vulnerable. We are ready to defend our home against any threat." Her words sparked a mix of awe and disbelief. People cheered in some parts of the world while others panicked, fearing retaliation from alien forces. Conspiracy theories swirled faster than ever before. Was this truly humanity's achievement? Or had Earth been infiltrated by extraterrestrial beings posing as humans? Despite the uncertainty, one thing became undeniable. Humanity now possessed technology far beyond anything previously imagined. Deep within the Zorathian warship Vraxian, Commander Vralok watched the broadcast with mounting dread. His jagged mandibles twitched involuntarily, a telltale sign of stress among his species. He had seen countless civilizations rise and fall during his long career as a military leader, but never had he witnessed such a dramatic shift in power, dynamics. Just hours earlier, his fleet had launched another raid on a remote human colony, confident that Earth lacked both the capability and resolve to fight back. Now staring at the screen showing Earth's armada, he realized how wrong he had been. "What is this sorcery?" Vralok growled, slamming a clawed fist against the console. His subordinates flinched, exchanging nervous glances. None dared to answer directly. Instead, they busied themselves analyzing data streaming in from their sensors. What they discovered only deepened their unease. The human ships weren't merely advanced, they were superior. Weapon systems capable of obliterating entire planets. Shields strong enough to withstand sustained bombardment, and worst of all, artificial intelligence piloting many of the vessels, ensuring precision strikes without hesitation. "This changes everything," muttered Subcommander Drexel, his antennae quivering with anxiety. "If they can build machines like these, then—" "Silence!" Vralok snapped, cutting him off abruptly. His compound eyes narrowed as he leaned closer to the monitor displaying Captain Ruiz's face. There was something unnerving about her. Calm demeanor, as though she knew exactly how terrified the Zorathians must be feeling. "Prepare a message," he ordered sharply. "We need to negotiate before they decide to annihilate us." But even as he gave the command, doubt gnawed at him. Negotiation? With humans? The very idea seemed absurd. For centuries, the Zorathians had viewed Earth as little more than a primitive backwater, ripe for exploitation. They had raided its colonies, enslaved its settlers, and stolen its resources without consequence. How could they possibly appeal to creatures who had suddenly become equals, or worse, superiors? Back on Earth, reactions to Captain Ruiz's announcement continued to unfold. In Tokyo, Aiko sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, her stuffed bear resting beside her. Her grandmother knelt nearby, lighting incense sticks and muttering prayers under her breath. Outside their window, the sky still bore the eerie glow of the star destroyers, casting strange shadows across the room. Aiko clutched her bear tightly, trying to make sense of what she'd seen. Was this really happening? Had humanity somehow built those incredible ships overnight? Or was it all part of some elaborate trick? In Paris, the street performer strummed his guitar harder than ever, drawing larger crowds as word spread about his impromptu concert. Passers-by stopped to listen, some shedding tears, others laughing nervously. The musician didn't care why they came. He played because music was the only way he knew how to cope with chaos. Each note rang out like a defiant cry, echoing through the city streets. For a brief moment, the fear gripping everyone's hearts eased, replaced by a shared sense of wonder. Meanwhile, Jack Harper basked in the attention his predictions had finally earned him. Reporters surrounded him outside Times Square, shoving microphones into his face and firing questions rapidly. "Did you know this would happen?" one asked eagerly. "How did you predict it?" Another pressed closer, shouting over the noise. "Do you think aliens will retaliate?" Harper grinned widely, reveling in the spotlight. "I told you," he exclaimed, throwing his arms up dramatically. "I've been saying for years that humanity was hiding its true potential. Now we're seeing the proof. This isn't the end, it's the beginning." His enthusiasm was infectious, inspiring cheers from bystanders. Yet not everyone shared his optimism. Nearby, a young mother clutched her toddler tightly, her eyes filled with tears. "What if they attack us?" she whispered to no one in particular. "What if this is all a trap?" Her fears weren't unfounded. Across the globe, governments scrambled to respond to the unfolding situation. Emergency meetings convened in secret bunkers, leaders debating whether to trust Captain Ruiz's assurances or prepare for the worst. Military bases went on high alert, fighter jets patrolling skies already dominated by alien technology. No one knew what the next hour or even the next minute would bring. High above Earth aboard the Erebus, Captain Ruiz monitored global reactions closely. Holographic displays flickered around her, showing live footage of protests, celebrations, and sheer pandemonium. Some segments showed people hugging strangers in joy, believing humanity had finally claimed its rightful place among the stars. Others depicted riots breaking out as panic overwhelmed reason. Ruiz sighed deeply, leaning back in her chair. She had expected mixed reactions, but the scale of the chaos caught her off guard. "What do you think, Lieutenant?" she asked, turning to Marcus Kane. He stood nearby, studying the same screens with a furrowed brow. "It's complicated," Kane admitted after a pause. "Some are celebrating, sure, but others are scared. Really scared, and honestly, I don't blame them." Ruiz nodded thoughtfully. "Fear is natural," she said softly, "but so is hope. The question is which emotion will win out in the end." Before Kane could reply, alarms blared throughout the bridge. Everyone froze, turning toward the main monitor. An incoming transmission flashed across the screen, accompanied by a warning. Unidentified signal detected. Source: alien origin. "Patch it through," Ruiz commanded immediately. Within seconds, the screen shifted, revealing a grotesque, alien figure seated in what appeared to be a throne-like chair. Its body was covered in chitinous armor, its multiple limbs twitching restlessly. Compound eyes blinked rapidly, scanning the camera lens. This was Commander Vrelok. "I am Vrelok of the Zorathian Empire," the creature rasped, its voice distorted by translation software. "We wish to open negotiations with your kind." Ruiz raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Negotiations?" she repeated coolly. "After decades of attacking our colonies and slaughtering our people? You'll forgive me if I'm skeptical." Vrelok hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Times have changed," he replied stiffly. "Your display of power, it has forced us to reconsider our stance. Perhaps there is room for cooperation between our species." "Cooperation?" The word hung heavy in the air, dripping with insincerity. Ruiz exchanged a glance with Kane, who shook his head almost imperceptibly. Neither believed the Zorathian's sudden change of heart for a second. "We'll consider your proposal," Ruiz said finally, choosing her words carefully. "But understand this. If you attempt to deceive us, the consequences will be severe." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the crew of the Erebus to process what had just transpired. Negotiations with the Zorathians? It sounded preposterous. Yet here they were, facing a scenario no one could have predicted. As night fell over Earth, the star destroyers remained suspended in orbit, silent sentinels watching over the planet below. Lights twinkled faintly along their hulls, casting ethereal reflections on clouds drifting lazily beneath them. For the first time in history, humanity looked up at the sky not with fear, but with pride, and perhaps a touch of defiance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one truth was undeniable. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and it was no longer weak. Across the galaxy, whispers of Earth's newfound strength spread like wildfire. Civilizations that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant now took notice. Allies and enemies alike began recalculating strategies, wondering how this unexpected player would reshape the balance of power. Meanwhile, aboard the Erebus, Captain Ruiz stared out at the stars, her mind racing with possibilities. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage. Now came the hard part: staying there. The days following Captain Ruiz's announcement were unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. People around the world oscillated between hope and fear, caught in a whirlwind of emotions as they tried to process what it meant to suddenly share the galaxy with powerful alien civilizations, and to stand on equal footing with them. Governments held emergency sessions behind closed doors, while scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the advanced technology displayed by the Star Destroyers. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens went about their lives under the shadow of the massive ships hovering above Earth, unsure whether to feel protected or threatened. On board the Erebus, tensions simmered just beneath the surface. Captain Elena Ruiz paced the command deck, her sharp eyes scanning holographic displays that showed real-time updates from across the globe. News outlets broadcast endless debates about humanity's newfound role in the universe. Social media was ablaze with theories ranging from paranoid conspiracies to optimistic visions of interstellar peace. Yet despite the chaos unfolding below, Ruiz remained focused on one thing: ensuring Earth safety. "We've received another transmission from the Zorathians," Lieutenant Marcus Kane announced, his voice cutting through the hum of activity on the bridge. He hesitated for a moment, glancing at Ruiz before continuing. "They're requesting a formal meeting to discuss terms." Ruiz stopped mid-step, turning to face him. Her expression hardened. "Terms?" she echoed, her tone laced with skepticism. What kind of terms could they possibly offer after everything they've done? Kane shrugged, clearly uncomfortable. "They claim they want to avoid conflict and propose an alliance. They even mentioned sharing resources, if we agree to work together." An uneasy silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what the Zorathians were truly after: time to regroup and reassess their strategy. For centuries, they had viewed humanity as little more than prey, a resource to exploit without consequence. Now faced with overwhelming force, they sought to negotiate, hoping to salvage whatever advantage they could. But Ruiz wasn't fooled. She had seen too much cruelty, too many lives destroyed by their raids. "Tell them we'll consider their proposal," she said finally, her voice firm but measured. "But remind them, any false move will result in immediate retaliation." As Kane relayed the message, Ruiz turned back to the main monitor, which now displayed a live feed of the Zorathian fleet retreating cautiously into deeper space. Their movements were slow and deliberate, as though they feared provoking the human ships into action. It was a stark contrast to their usual arrogance, and Ruiz couldn't help but feel a flicker of satisfaction. Humanity had forced them to back down for now. Far away from Earth, aboard the Zorathian warship Vraxian, Commander Verloc wrestled with his own frustrations. His once imposing frame seemed diminished as he slumped in his throne-like chair, mandibles twitching nervously. Sub-Commander Drexel stood nearby, antennae drooping as he delivered yet another bleak report. "They're not falling for it, sir," Drexel admitted reluctantly. "Their leader, this Captain Ruiz, is smarter than we anticipated. Every attempt to stall or manipulate has been met with suspicion." Verloc growled low in his throat, slamming a clawed hand against the armrest. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he snarled. "Those primitive apes weren't meant to develop weapons capable of matching us. How did they hide this from us?" Drexel shifted uncomfortably, knowing better than to interrupt when his commander was in such a state. Yet he couldn't stay silent forever. Perhaps there's still a way," he ventured cautiously. When Verloc shot him a venomous glare, he hurried to explain. "If we can isolate one of their ships, take hostages, we might gain leverage, force them to comply with our demands." For a long moment, Verloc considered the idea. Hostage-taking was a tactic his people had used countless times before, often with devastating effectiveness. But something about this situation felt different. The humans weren't behaving like other species they'd encountered. Instead of cowering in fear, they stood tall, radiating confidence. And that unnerved him. "No," he said finally, shaking his head. "Not yet. We need more information first. Send scouts to gather intelligence on their weakest points. If we strike, it must be decisive." As Drexel scurried off to carry out the order, Verloc leaned back in his chair, staring at the image of Earth displayed on a nearby screen. The blue-green planet loomed tantalizingly close, its beauty masking the danger it now represented. For the first time in his long career, Verloc felt doubt creeping in. Had the Zorathians underestimated humanity, Or worse, had they created a monster? Back on Earth, life continued in fits and starts. In Tokyo, Aiko sat glued to her television, watching endless coverage of the star destroyers. Her grandmother had resumed her prayers, lighting incense sticks morning and night in hopes of appeasing whatever cosmic forces were at play. Aiko herself wasn't sure what to believe. Part of her wanted to trust Captain Ruiz's promise that humanity was safe, but another part couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was lurking just beyond the horizon. In Paris, the street performer who had captured attention during the initial unveiling of the ships had gained a small following. Crowds gathered daily to hear him play, his guitar strings vibrating with melodies that seemed to echo the collective heartbeat of humanity. Sometimes he sang songs of hope. Other times, his music carried notes of sorrow and uncertainty. Regardless, people came, not just to listen but to find solace in shared emotion. Meanwhile, Jack Harper had become an overnight celebrity. His predictions, once dismissed as lunacy, were now hailed as prophetic. Reporters trailed him everywhere, eager to document his every word. Harper relished the attention, delivering impassioned speeches about humanity's destiny among the stars. Yet even he couldn't ignore the growing unease spreading through society. Despite his bravado, he found himself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling and wondering if Earth's newfound power would lead to peace or destruction. High above the planet, diplomatic efforts between humans and Zorathians proceeded cautiously. A neutral zone was established near the edge of Earth's orbit, where representatives from both sides would meet to discuss potential cooperation. Captain Ruiz led the human delegation, flanked by a team of advisors and security personnel. Each member wore sleek exosuits equipped with advanced weaponry, ready to respond to any threat. When the two groups convened aboard a specially designed conference ship, the atmosphere was tense. Vralok arrived accompanied by several heavily armed guards, their insectoid forms casting ominous shadows across the walls. The air crackled with mistrust as the leaders exchanged formal greetings. "I am Captain Elena Ruiz," she began, her voice calm but authoritative. "And you are Commander Vralok, correct?" Vralok inclined his head slightly, though his compound eyes betrayed his discomfort. "Yes," he rasped. "I speak on behalf of the Zorathian Empire." Ruiz wasted no time getting to the point. "Your actions against our colonies have caused immeasurable suffering. Why should we believe you seek peace now?" Vralok hesitated, clearly unprepared for such directness. "Times change," he replied stiffly. "Your display of power has shown us that humanity is no longer weak. Cooperation benefits both our peoples." Before Ruiz could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead as automated systems detected unauthorized movement outside the designated neutral zone. On the monitors, dozens of Zorathian drones swarmed toward the conference ship, their intentions unclear. "This is a breach of protocol," Ruiz snapped, rising to her feet. "Explain yourself, Commander." Vralok looked genuinely confused, his guards exchanging nervous glances. "I swear this was not my doing," he insisted, raising his claws defensively. "Someone else." Before he could finish, the ship shuddered violently. Explosions rocked the hull as hostile fire erupted from multiple directions. Chaos ensued as both delegations scrambled for cover. Ruiz barked orders into her communicator, summoning reinforcements while activating the ship's defensive systems. Outside, human fighters engaged the rogue drones, filling the void with bursts of plasma and laser fire. Amidst the chaos, Ruiz locked eyes with Vralok. For a fleeting moment, their mutual fear transcended species boundaries. Whatever, or whoever, was attacking them, neither side could afford to lose. "Work with me," Ruiz demanded, extending a hand toward the alien commander. "Or we'll both die here." Vralok hesitated, then nodded grimly. Together, they coordinated a desperate counterattack, combining human ingenuity with Zorathian tactics to fend off the mysterious aggressors. As the last drone exploded in a fiery burst, silence returned, leaving behind only questions. Who had orchestrated the attack, and why? One thing was certain, Humanity's journey into the stars would be anything but simple. The aftermath of the attack left both humans and Zorathians shaken. Aboard the conference ship, smoke wafted through the air, mingling with the acrid scent of burnt metal. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows across the damaged corridors. Captain Elena Ruiz stood amidst the wreckage, her uniform singed but her resolve unbroken. Beside her, Commander Verloc leaned heavily against a wall, his chitinous armor cracked in places, evidence of the narrow escape they had just endured. For a brief moment, the animosity between their species faded into the background. Both leaders knew that whatever or whoever had orchestrated the ambush posed a far greater threat than either side could handle alone. Yet trust was fragile, hanging by a thread thinner than the vacuum of space itself. "What now?" Verloc rasped, his voice tinged with frustration and fear. His mandibles twitched involuntarily as he glanced at Ruiz, his compound eyes reflecting uncertainty. "If this enemy strikes again, neither of us will survive." Ruiz nodded grimly, her mind racing. "We need answers," she said firmly. "Whoever attacked us isn't acting randomly. They targeted us specifically to sabotage negotiations and escalate conflict." Verloc's antennae quivered slightly, a sign of agitation among his kind. "You think someone within my empire is responsible?" he asked sharply, his tone defensive. "It's possible," Ruiz admitted without hesitation. "But it's also possible someone within humanity wants war more than peace." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Until we know for sure, we're allies, whether we like it or not." Back on Earth, news of the failed summit spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to contain public panic as rumors swirled about a mysterious third party orchestrating the attack. Some claimed it was rogue elements within the Zorathian Empire attempting to maintain dominance. Others whispered of secret factions within humanity, determined to assert superiority over all alien races. Jack Harper, ever the opportunist, seized the moment to amplify his message. "This proves everything I've been saying," he shouted during an impromptu press conference outside Times Square. Cameras flashed as reporters jostled for position, eager to capture his reaction. "There are forces out there, forces beyond our understanding, that don't want peace. They thrive on chaos and destruction." His words resonated with many, fueling both hope and paranoia. In living rooms around the world, people debated whether Harper was a visionary or a madman. Meanwhile, military bases went on high alert, preparing for the possibility of another strike. The star destroyers orbiting Earth remained vigilant, their weapon systems primed for action. High above the planet, aboard the Erebus, Captain Ruiz convened an emergency meeting with her senior staff. Holographic displays filled the room, showing data collected from the battle. Analysts worked tirelessly to identify the attacker's origins, piecing together fragments of telemetry and sensor readings. Lieutenant Marcus Kane stood beside Ruiz, pointing to a cluster of anomalies on one of the screens. "These drones didn't match any known Zorathian designs," he explained, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Their energy signatures suggest advanced cloaking technology, far beyond what we've encountered before." Ruiz crossed her arms, studying the images closely. "So we're dealing with an unknown player," she murmured thoughtfully. "Someone who doesn't want us cooperating with the Zorathians." Kane nodded. "It gets worse. Preliminary scans indicate these drones were remotely controlled, but the signal source is untraceable. Whoever's behind this knows exactly how to stay hidden." As the crew discussed potential strategies, Ruiz's thoughts drifted to Commander Verloc. Despite their differences, she couldn't deny that the Zorathian leader had shown genuine concern during the attack. Perhaps there was merit in exploring a temporary alliance, even if only to uncover the truth. "Prepare a secure channel to the Vraxion," she ordered suddenly. "We need to share what we've found." On board, the Zorathian flagship, Subcommander Drexel delivered the latest intelligence to Verloc, whose mood had grown increasingly volatile. The once proud commander paced restlessly, his movements jerky and erratic. Every report added another layer of complexity to an already precarious situation. Our analysts confirm what the humans discovered, Drexel reported hesitantly. The drones weren't ours. Their design suggests outside influence. Verloc stopped mid-step, turning sharply to face him. Outside influence? He repeated, his voice low and dangerous. You mean traitors, spies? Drexel flinched but held his ground. It's possible, sir. There are factions within the Empire who oppose negotiation with humans. They may have acted independently to provoke further conflict. Before Verloc could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead as sensors detected incoming objects, dozens of them, moving at incredible speeds. On the main monitor, glowing shapes materialized from the darkness of space surrounding. The Vraxian, cloaked vessels decloaked simultaneously, revealing sleek angular designs unlike anything seen before. They're hailing us, Drexel announced, his antennae quivering nervously. Audio only. Verloc clenched his claws tightly, bracing himself for whatever came next. When the voice finally spoke, it sent chills down everyone's spines, not because of its tone, but because it sounded eerily human. Greetings, Commander Verloc, the voice said smoothly, almost mockingly. And to you, Captain Ruiz, we've been watching your little dance with great interest. Ruiz, listening in via the secure channel, exchanged a startled glance with Kane. This new player knew about their alliance, or at least suspected it. Whoever they weren't playing games. Who are you? Verloc demanded, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. Show yourself. The response came in the form of laughter, a cold mechanical sound devoid of emotion. Let's just say we represent those who prefer disorder. Your attempts at cooperation insult the natural order of things. Humanity and Zorathians cannot coexist peacefully. It goes against the fabric of the universe. Ruiz stepped forward, addressing the transmission directly. You're wrong, she countered firmly. Peace isn't weakness, it's strength, and we won't let you dictate our future. The mysterious figure chuckled darkly. Admirable sentiment, Captain. But ideals mean nothing when faced with annihilation. With that, the transmission ended abruptly, leaving both ships engulfed in silence. Moments later, the cloaked vessels opened fire, unleashing devastating salvos of energy weapons that lit up the void like fireworks gone horribly wrong. Explosions erupted around the Vraxian and Erebus, sending shockwaves rippling through space. Human and Zorathian forces retaliated immediately, launching fighters and deploying countermeasures. Plasma bolts streaked across the battlefield, painting the darkness with bursts of light. Amidst the chaos, Ruiz made a bold decision. Ordering her flagship closer to the Vraxian, she initiated a risky boarding operation. Elite soldiers equipped with cutting-edge exosuits breached the enemy vessels, determined to disable their command centers. Inside, corridors buzzed with alarms as hostile forces clashed violently. Gunfire echoed through dim passageways, illuminating desperate faces lit by muzzle flashes. Captain Ruiz herself led the charge, her weapon trained ahead as she moved with precision, honed by years of training. Behind her, a team of Marines followed. Closely, their movements synchronized like clockwork. Every step brought them deeper into enemy territory, closer to unraveling the mystery of their shadowy adversary. Finally, after what felt like hours, Ruiz and her team reached the heart of one of the cloaked ships. There they found something unexpected. A single humanoid figure seated in a control chair, connected to the vessel's systems via neural implants. Its face was obscured by a mask, but its posture suggested calm indifference even as the battle raged outside. You shouldn't be here, the figure said softly, its voice distorted yet strangely familiar. This fight isn't yours. Ruiz tightened her grip on her weapon, stepping closer. Who are you? She demanded. Why are you doing this? The figure tilted its head slightly, almost amused. I am merely a servant of inevitability, it replied cryptically. Order must give way to chaos, balance requires destruction. With that, the figure activated a self-destruct sequence, flooding the chamber with blinding light. Ruiz and her team barely escaped in time, retreating back to the Erebus as the cloaked ship exploded spectacularly, taking its secrets with Garrison. As the dust settled, both humans and Zarathians regrouped, nursing their wounds and tallying their losses. Though the immediate threat had been neutralized, questions lingered. Who or what had orchestrated the attack? What did they truly want? And how far would they go to achieve it? For now, Captain Ruiz and Commander Vrelok agreed to set aside their differences and work together. Their uneasy alliance marked the beginning of a larger struggle, one that would test not just their strength but their ability to adapt in the face of an unpredictable universe. Earth's skies had parted to reveal star destroyers, but the true battle was only beginning. Somewhere in the vastness of space, shadows lurked, waiting for their chance to strike again. The battle had ended, but the scars it left behind were deep and lasting. Across the galaxy, whispers of Earth's newfound strength spread like wildfire. Civilizations that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant now took notice. Allies and enemies alike recalculated strategies, wondering how this unexpected player would reshape the balance of power. For Captain Elena Ruiz and Commander Vrelok, however, the immediate aftermath was anything but triumphant. Both leaders stood battered, physically, emotionally, and strategically, as they assessed the damage wrought by their mysterious adversary. Aboard the Erebus, Ruiz surveyed the wreckage of her fleet. Several star destroyers bore charred hulls. From the intense firefight, while others floated lifelessly in space, their crews lost to the void. The human casualties weighed heavily on her conscience, each name etched into her memory like a scar. Yet despite the losses, there was a sense of grim determination among the survivors. Humanity had faced an unknown enemy head-on and survived. Commander Vrelok, meanwhile, grappled with his own turmoil aboard the Vraxian. The attack had exposed fractures within the Zarathian Empire, revealing dissenting factions eager to exploit the chaos for personal gain. His authority, once unquestioned, now hung precariously in the balance. Sub-Commander Drexel approached cautiously, his antennae twitching nervously as he delivered yet another bleak report. "Sir," Drexel began hesitantly, "internal communications indicate rising unrest. Some commanders are questioning your leadership and your decision to cooperate with humans." Vrelok clenched his claws tightly, suppressing the urge to lash out. He knew Drexel spoke the truth. The Zarathians prided themselves on dominance, viewing compromise as weakness. Aligning with humanity, even temporarily, was seen as an affront to their very identity. Still, Vrelok couldn't ignore the reality staring him in the face. Without cooperation, both species would fall prey to whatever shadowy force sought to tear them apart. "We hold our ground," Vrelok growled firmly. "If dissent grows louder, we crush it. But make no mistake, we fight alongside the humans until this threat is eliminated." Back on Earth, reactions to the battle varied wildly. In Tokyo, Aiko sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. Her grandmother continued lighting incense sticks, praying for peace even as news reports painted grim pictures of destruction in the stars above. Outside their window, the massive star destroyers remained suspended in orbit, silent sentinels watching over the planet below. Aiko stared at them, her young mind struggling to comprehend the enormity of what had happened. Were they heroes, protectors, or harbingers of something darker? In Paris, the street performer who had captured hearts with his defiant melodies found himself playing to smaller crowds. People were too consumed by fear and uncertainty to gather in public spaces anymore. Yet he persisted, strumming his guitar with quiet resolve. Each note carried a message of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times humanity could find light in shared experiences. Jack Harper, however, thrived in the chaos. Media outlets clamored for interviews, eager to capitalize on his newfound fame as a prophet of interstellar conflict. Harper basked in the attention, delivering impassioned speeches about humanity's destiny among the stars. Yet beneath his bravado lay a growing unease. The attack had shaken him more than he cared to admit. Who were these mysterious aggressors, And why did their words echo so chillingly in his mind? This isn't over, Harper muttered to himself late one night, pacing his hotel room. Not by a long shot. High above Earth, diplomatic efforts between humans and Zorathians resumed cautiously. Recognizing the need for unity, Captain Ruiz proposed a joint task force to investigate the origins of the cloaked ships. Verloc agreed reluctantly, knowing it was the only way to restore stability within his empire. Together, they assembled a team comprising the best minds and warriors from both species. The operation was codenamed Project Eclipse, symbolizing humanity's emergence from the shadows of vulnerability into the light of galactic prominence. Teams scoured the wreckage of the destroyed cloaked vessel, searching for clues about its creators. Advanced AI systems analyzed fragments of data recovered from neural implants, piecing together fragments of communication logs and encrypted messages. What they discovered chilled them to the core. The cloaked ships belonged to a rogue faction known as the Veil Syndicate, a secretive organization operating beyond the reach of any recognized government or empire. Their goal was simple yet terrifying: to destabilize established powers and create a vacuum of chaos where they could rise supreme. They viewed alliances like the one forming between humans and Zorathians as threats to their vision of disorder. "They're fanatics," Lieutenant Marcus Kane remarked grimly during a briefing aboard the Erebus. Holographic displays flickered around him, showing schematics of Veil technology and intercepted communications. "They don't care about conquest or resources. They want destruction for its own sake." Ruiz nodded thoughtfully, her expression grave. "Then we stop them before they can strike again, no matter the cost." As preparations for the next phase of the mission intensified, Captain Ruiz received an unexpected visitor. Jack Harper, armed with credentials granted through sheer persistence, managed to secure passage aboard the Erebus. His arrival sparked mixed reactions among the crew, ranging from amusement to outright hostility. Yet Ruiz tolerated his presence, intrigued by his uncanny ability to predict events. "You've been right before," she said during a private meeting in her quarters. "Tell me, what do you see coming next?" Harper hesitated, his usual confidence faltering under her piercing gaze. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "But I feel it. Something big. Bigger than all of us." His words lingered in Ruiz's mind as she finalized plans for Project Eclipse. She didn't trust Harper, not entirely, but his instincts aligned disturbingly well with her own gut feelings. Whatever awaited them, it would test humanity's limits. The climax came when the Joint Task Force traced the Veil Syndicate's operations to a remote sector of the galaxy. Hidden within a dense asteroid field was a sprawling base bristling with defenses. Cloaked ships patrolled the perimeter, while automated turrets scanned for intruders. It was a fortress designed to repel even the most determined attackers. Undeterred, Ruiz and Verloc devised a daring plan. Human fighters would draw fire from the outer defenses, creating an opening for Zorathian assault teams to infiltrate the base. Meanwhile, Ruiz led a small squad directly into the heart of the facility, determined to confront the mastermind behind the Veil Syndicate. Inside, corridors buzzed with activity as Syndicate operatives scrambled to defend their stronghold. Explosions echoed through the metallic halls, shaking the walls violently. Ruiz's team moved swiftly, taking down enemies with precision and coordination honed through countless battles. Finally, they reached the command center, a cavernous chamber filled with holographic displays and humming machinery. At the center stood the masked figure Ruiz had encountered earlier. Its posture remained eerily calm as it turned to face her, its voice distorted but unmistakable. "You shouldn't have come here," it intoned coldly. "This ends now." Before Ruiz could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. Self-destruct protocols activated, flooding the chamber with red warning lights. The figure vanished into a hidden escape pod, leaving Ruiz and her team mere moments to evacuate. In the final moments, humanity and Zorathians fought side by side, narrowly escaping the collapsing base. As they emerged into open space, the asteroid field erupted in a spectacular display of destruction, consuming the Veil Syndicate's stronghold in a fiery inferno. Though victorious, Ruiz knew the war was far from over. The Veil Syndicate had been dealt a blow, but their ideology would endure. Shadows still lurked in the vastness of space, waiting for their chance to strike again. Yet as Earth's skies parted to reveal star destroyers standing tall against the cosmos, humanity looked upward, not with fear, but with pride. They had taken their first step onto the galactic stage, and they would not falter. For better or worse, the future belonged to them.